The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Quirky Dog Podcast, inspired by some of the quirkiest dogs you can ever imagine and the owners who love them. This podcast is brought to you by the quirky couple themselves, Scott and Jess Williams. Their aim is to educate and entertain. Here's Scott and Jess.
Welcome, guys, and happy Wednesday. Today we have a very special episode in store. We have one of our good friends, and more specifically, one of Scott's very good friends for many years now.
One of my only friends.
Okay. Only friends sounds a little bit like only fans. We got to keep it on track here. It is an amazing decoy. He is owner of All American Canine. If you are in Phoenix, Arizona, they are an amazing pet dog business. We are welcoming Bob Solimini on the podcast here today. So, Bob, thank you so much for joining us. But first, we are. Oh my God, we got sound going. Bob's not popping up. It's crazy today. Okay. First, we're going to start with the quirky tip of the day. All right, we got Bob and we have the pig. My quirky tip, you guys, is if you are involved in protection sports in any way, shape, or form, and this episode is focusing on protection dogs, we'll probably talk about police dogs, sport dogs. If we don't talk about bodybuilding, I can't promise you we won't even go there. But I want you to check out the Ultimate Decoy Playbook. I'm going to put the URL in the description. It is something that Bob put together, and it's a course out there for those of you who get in the suit, because decoy safety is paramount. It's so important, you guys. If you are dabbling in protection with your dogs and you just think, oh, whoever owns a suit, I'm just going to send my dog on them, your dog can get a broken neck. It's not safe. It's very important that you're doing proper decoy work. So the Ultimate Decoy Playbook is our quirky tip of the day. And now we have Bob. So Bob, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
No, thanks for having me. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, okay. So Scott wanted to touch on the protection dog situation, because we get some clients every now and then that are like, I need a protection dog. And he goes, well, what do you mean? Why? Like, what purpose is that going to serve? So you have an area of expertise here. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been training dogs for protection for over 30 years. I've worked with a lot of different trainers from all over the world, really, doing French ring, protection dogs, all types of sport dogs. Worked with military, police dogs in the past, even up to just a few years ago. Now I'm getting older, so I try not to work with them anymore. It's just too much pain on the body. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of misconceptions when it comes to protection dogs out there, and I'm more than happy to discuss that with you guys.
Yeah. So what do you do when a client comes, and I know you're not doing this as much anymore, but they want a dog to protect the household? Like, what does that look like? Maybe just some tips for those kind of clientele, that type of situation.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely always try to educate people on what exactly a protection dog is, because there is, like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions. People think that it's just going to be like this pet dog, like their lab, that's just going to sit around all day, not need exercise and constant training. It's almost like anything in life. If you're playing the piano, you have to keep practicing. If you take a martial arts, you got to keep practicing. So the same with that dog. It does take maintenance training. So it is a lifelong commitment to the dog. You can't play around with it because they can potentially be dangerous. And unfortunately, there is a lot of companies out there that sell protection dogs. They're in it for the money, and they don't really put a lot of thought behind the dog of where it's going. It has to be good with kids, good with strangers. It has to be basically a pet dog 99% of the time, and that 1%, hopefully never, it has to come to your aid and protect you. Some of these dogs, they're more suited for police work, where they're going to be in a kennel run, in a cruiser, and then deployed on somebody, as opposed to like being around the kid's birthday party with a bunch of kids running around pulling on its tail, is walking through a bad neighborhood. So it's kind of a quirky thing to get into.
Yeah, it almost justifies the price when you consider to actually get a dog like that. Those type of dogs are so far and few between, where they're so stable and confident that they can actually hang out with kids and not make bad choices, and even the best dogs out there, I mean, they need a lot of clarity and how they're handled, and like you said, a lot of maintenance. I can remember when I was out in California, and people would get protection dogs out there, and they would hire somebody from the club to like come over and do some scenarios with me at the house, you know? And half the time the dogs weren't performing well. You know, you had to get them kind of back into the headspace of, because they were, fortunately, I mean, if they were so good that they're just going to nail anybody at any time, that's a problem.
Right.
And then if they're not biting because they're not getting enough maintenance work, that's a problem too, you know? So
for sure.
How much maintenance do you think those dogs need? Like maybe every other month type thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how proficient you want the dog to be. I mean, I would even recommend once a week having some maintenance training. Like I said, I always kind of make the analogy towards like martial arts. If you're only training martial arts once a month, you're not going to be that good.
Yeah.
You know, at least once a week. And yeah, I mean, that is it. Is like, you know, you even see that with police dogs. They'll just throw a guy on the department in a bite suit and have him take bites. And a lot of the police dogs, they're really not proficient as well as they should be. But yeah, I mean, that's the price, like that big, you know, ticket price on a protection dog. I always tell people, you're not paying for the dog, you're paying for me. So it's my experience, the expertise, you know, everything that comes along with it. And also you're paying for me to deal with your, you know, to put it bluntly, bullshit.
Right.
Because I know you're going to be calling me all the time that, you know, the dog is doing something wrong, and typically it's not the dog doing something wrong, it's the way you've set up the situation to make the dog basically fail.
Right.
You know, I've even in the past I've sold protection dogs, and I tell the people, like, I wouldn't have the dog out during a cookout, and that's what they do. They have the dog out at a cookout, it's swimming in the pool with people, and somebody pushes the dog and it bites them, and it's like, you set that situation up, you know. So those are the things that come along with that high price tag, is, you know, putting up with all of that stuff for the rest of the dog's life. I'm not just selling the dog and see you later. It's, you know, it's a protection dog, like you would if you sold a gun.
Sure.
You know, once it's sold, it's sold. With a protection dog, you're going to constantly be fielding phone calls and questions and problem solving and all kinds of things that are attached to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of headache.
Yeah. And I think when it's ethically done, you're not just like taking dogs that washed out from the police department, training them for a couple months and throwing them into a family. Like, I mean, there's months, if not years, of training that go into these dogs. When we're talking about a high price tag, you know, if somebody's selling you a protection dog for 10 grand, you don't want to work with them. Like, there's the very elite part of this country and society in general that, you know, sells these dogs ethically. And it's even a hard go there. So make sure you're really doing your research and not just doing some random, you know, Google check. Like, get references. You need to work with someone who's been experienced with this before and who's selecting a dog with proper genetics on the front end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the thing is, for me personally, to buy a dog, to train it, to sell as a protection dog, I'm spending $6,000.
Yeah.
Easy. So
how, if I'm spending $6,000 on a dog and you're buying a fully trained protection dog for that same price, it's impossible. You're getting a shit dog.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of great companies out there that sell protection dogs. I don't want to make it sound like the whole industry is, you know, just a bunch of scammers. It's not. There's really legit people out there selling dogs, and they're high-end dogs. But unfortunately, there's also a lot of people out there that are scamming the public, and they're taking money for dogs that shouldn't be in the household. And a lot of them have like great lines of like, oh, this dog was raised in my house, and they're selling 30 dogs. You don't have 30 dogs in your house. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So they're full of shit.
Yeah, it's true. And Scott always says, I mean, do you want a dog that bites or do you just want a dog that barks? Like, what do you really need? What will make you feel good? And half the time, you know, if you have a scary dog, even if it's not a shepherd or a mal and it's, you know, got a lot of black on it, the dog that barks is going to keep a lot of predators away. You know, it really depends on the specific need for the family and the environment and everything else. And sometimes it's just an ego trip that these clients want to go on, and that's their own choice and their own journey. But, you know, really owning a protection dog is a high level of responsibility, and it's a 10+ year commitment easily on the owner's part as well.
Yeah, and they kind of have to become dog trainers too, because if they're doing weekly maintenance, they need to learn how to handle that dog and how to call the dog off of going after the wrong target, all that stuff. And that's a lot of work. Most people don't want that level of work. They don't realize it. They think they do. But then it's kind of like, in a sense, a parallel here was the bed bug stuff. You and I were involved with the bed bug dogs for a while. And this one exterminator, I trained a bed bug dog for him, and he took the dog out and he was excited, and the dog worked well. But then he realized how much work it was, because it's a team. And he was that part of the team, and he was the owner. He's like, this is just too much work for me. I can't run my business because I'm out running a bed bug dog all the time. And so he wound up selling the dog because it was just, not that the dog wasn't good, it was just too much work for him, and he needed to be in other areas doing other things, you know? So it is a lot
for sure. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. With the police
it's definitely
dogs.
a team. I mean, even with us, with like ring sport, you know, training in sports, like it's a team. It takes a decoy, a handler, a dog. It takes everyone to be there. It even takes other people in your club to help, you know, move jumps and everything. It is a whole team. And that's what your household has to be. You have to have everyone on board. You can't have one person that doesn't like the dog and doesn't want to be around the dog, and one person that's buying the dog because they're on an ego trip. Like you were saying earlier, you know, it's not an ego thing. You can't have that with a dog, because the dogs don't care. They don't care who you are, what you are, if they're going to bite somebody. And that's the big difference between like a guard dog behind a fence that's guarding a lot that'll bite anybody that comes in there, and an actual personal protection dog that will bite on command, let go on command. They have very good obedience and control. And that takes maintenance. And if you're not willing to do it, don't go down that road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when we were doing the French ring, we would like put my dog in a down and have the decoy attack me so that the dog didn't break the down. Like the dog doesn't break the down unless you tell them to go, you know? So they're just looking and watching you get hit, and they're like, okay, I'm just waiting for you to send me in. Come on, let me go, you know?
Exactly.
But they're not just doing, and that's what happens at the barbecues, because people are drinking, and then all of a sudden someone comes up and gives you a big slap on the back and a big hug. Hey, what's up, buddy? And then the dog's like, what's up here, you know? And then then
you always have those friends that have a couple of drinks in them, and they're like, oh, I heard Jimmy has a protection dog. Let's see if the dog will do this. And they end up in the hospital.
Yeah, no kidding.
Good trainer, though. The dog came with good training. All right. Well, I know your passion and stuff isn't as much in protection dogs anymore. What are you passionate about? You're still very involved in ring, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, my wife is competing with her dog. I don't decoy in trials anymore. It's way over the hill for that. But definitely decoy training. I really enjoy working with young decoys and teaching them the ropes on, you know, how to be the best trial decoy and training decoy. Obviously training my wife's dog, still doing seminars for French ring. And I absolutely love French ring. I think it's a great foundation sport for literally anything. You can use that foundation to train protection dogs, police dogs, military dogs, even just the obedience. Like the obedience that's in French ring sport it's unmatched.
I think one of the first times we met, for sure, I had you come out and do a seminar for my club, and that was like in 2004, 2005. You remember that? Yeah. It was a good time.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Yeah, no, it was a great time. Yeah, it was good.
And it was hot, and, we were, the thing is, I mean, I say it was hot. It's not Phoenix hot, but we were like...
definitely. No. But it definitely wasn't Boston hot.
No,
I was dying.
Yeah. No, it was like 90s. And that's the other thing. I used to wear that suit, and we'd all wear the suit all day long. And it would be like, not all day long, but for a few hours. And it's in the 90s. Sure. And then when you first do that, it's kind of traumatic because not about the dog, just like your adrenaline's up because a dog's biting you. It's really hot. You're hyperventilating almost. And then all of a sudden you're like, I got to get the suit off me. I think I'm going to friggin' drop dead, you know? But then after you start doing it, then all of a sudden you just got to make sure you're drinking water, because you can just keep going and going, but you're getting dehydrated. You just got to drink water, you know?
Are you in the suit pretty much daily? Are you in the suit pretty much daily?
No, like 2 to 3 times a week now.
Okay. All right. And I mean, I think a good thing for people listening who, you know, are thinking like, oh, it would be cool to have a dog bite me. I mean, there's a lot of facets to this stuff. Like there's the mental side, the physical side. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit? Like what it actually means to be in the suit and be training these dogs and catching them safely and everything?
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, and it's always funny because like you said, a lot of people, they do like, oh, I would love to get in the bite suit. And then when they start doing it, they realize like, holy shit, excuse my French, it's a lot of work. I mean, it is mentally draining. It's physically draining. You got to be safe for the dog. You got to remember too, this is unfair. It's almost, again, I used a lot of analogies. It's almost like entering a boxing match with somebody that's bare knuckled and they have headgear on and you just have boxing gloves and they're just knocking the piss out of you. Yeah. So like the dog isn't protected and you are. So they're biting you. If you're unfairly whipping them around and twisting their neck, you can really injure a dog. So there's only specific things that you should be doing in the suit that are fair for the dog, that you're not going to injure them. And the mental head game on it's a lot. So it's not just catching the dog, like, and taking a bite. Like, you got to catch them safely, make sure you don't jam them, because it's very easy to hurt their neck, hurt their legs, break a tooth, and really even injure yourself. You move the wrong way, you could snap an ACL or, break an ankle. And actually, I just had a decoy a few months ago break his ankle on my wife's dog, and the same decoy got bit in the face. So it's you just got to be careful. And this is an experience. Yeah, absolutely. And this is an experienced decoy. We were just working on the dog biting more upper body and up near the neck, and he moved.
I'm sure
he should have moved right.
Yeah, I'm sure the dog wasn't targeting the face. The dog is looking for the suit, the guy just moved into the bite. Yeah. Another thing that I remember early on that I didn't have a problem with it, and I know you had no problem with it, but when the dog bites you in the suit, it friggin' hurts. It hurts a lot. Yes. You know what I mean? So I can remember guys coming over like, hey, I want to put the suit on. I'm like, all right, put the suit on. And I'm like just running my dog in on a leash. The dog's biting him and they're screaming, stop. I'm like, well, what's up? I'm like, oh, the suit's too thin. I'm like, well, you got to be able to move around. If it's so big that you don't feel the dog, you can't even move, Like that would be more like a police dog thing, So
Absolutely.
That's the other side of it. These guys that are doing it in trials, they have an even thinner suit, and they're running around and they're getting bit all day, and I know what they're going through, and they're acting like it's nothing. And they take the suit off and they're just covered with welts, and sometimes it goes right through the skin,
Yeah, and Bob, really, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I first got into decoying, I remember meeting a French decoy, and he brought 2 sewing kits, one for his suit and one for him. And his suit was, oh my God, it was crazy thin. It was like a pair of Carhartt jeans,
Scratch pants for Schützen, yeah. Yeah, well, I was going to say, you really, in this country, you have been in the suit longer than most decoys still standing. And I know you're not decoying trials anymore, but you have a really long history of very high level decoying work and everything else. So, when you pick it apart, and you're still decoying dogs who are very successful on the field. Erica, his wife, does very well on trials. She's often on the podium. Everybody's like, oh crap, Erica's here. Erica and Bob are here. Like, shoot, there's going to be placements taken. But it really is worth noting that, most people have a very short decoy career, 10 years or less, and you have been getting in the suit time and time again for years and years and years and years and years. And you also are really big on focusing on your physical fitness outside of decoying. It's not like you're getting your exercise by getting in the suit twice a week here. So, is that part of decoying? Is that just part of you as a person? Where does that all come from?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of really everything. Christ, you look at, I'm from Boston, so you look at Tom Brady. Obviously his physical fitness was a big part of him being able to play football as long as he did. So the same with decoying, and this is kind of getting off base, but it always kind of blew my mind, because you see these French guys that'll work 50 dogs a day, and they're smoking a cigarette, drinking a beer, and jump in the suit, and they'll work dogs all day long. They eat like shit. They eat bread for breakfast, don't eat for 12 hours, never drink water, and they can do it all day. I just think it's really weird. But if you want to be a good, successful decoy, I think physical fitness is a big part of it. Obviously the mental game too. But same with anything. If you're going to be successful, you got to do what it takes. I want it to be a good decoy. I enjoy it. It's literally running through my veins. I absolutely love getting in the suit and working dogs. I don't want to do trials anymore, but definitely training. And I'm more than happy to ever work with a new decoy or even an experienced decoy and kind of show them some stuff. It really is my passion. So it definitely keeps me motivated. And I also like going to the gym. It's a little bit of that's my therapy, my mental therapy, going there, and so it does help out. I get my pain therapy in the suit, and then my mental therapy in the gym.
When you talk about those French decoys, one of the things that was kind of interesting or ironic is that a lot of the guys that were the best, they could barely certify because they couldn't do the big runs. They just you put them out there, they're the best in a trial or throw any dog on them and they can look the best. And then it got to be a thing where the guys that were winning were the guys that were just the most physically fit, but they weren't the best decoys. And then people were getting frustrated about that, that they were just
they've kind of started swinging the pendulum the other way now. They've made the physical part of it a little bit easier now. Yeah. Because you were basically getting long distance runners that were getting to be certified decoys. And some of the best decoys on the planet, they couldn't run worth a shit, but
Yeah.
they had phenomenal timing. I mean, they would just wait till the last second, move out of the way, and the dogs are blowing past them. And as you know, but maybe the audience doesn't, in French ring, the job of the decoy is the opposition of the dog. So you're trying to make them miss the bite, come off the bite, maybe even slow to let go of the bite. So anything that you can do to increase pressure, obviously within the rules, like you don't want to twist their neck and stuff. And there is a lot of rules to being a decoy in French rings. But the guys that were the best, like they just had phenomenal timing and were working dogs all day long. And but they couldn't run a marathon, that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very technical. So ring in this country, we kind of have stepped aside in the past 10 years or so. But the sport in this country it's pretty minute. It's pretty small. I feel like it's maybe even smaller than it was since you were in California.
Well,
I feel like
when you were in Mass with
was
your
pretty
club,
big
and
then.
I had a club, there was like 5 clubs in New England at that time. And now
Yes.
maybe there's one.
yeah.
It's been hard to keep it.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, to keep it going. But it's like you said, it takes a team. And that takes
Yes.
commitment by at least 5 or 6 people to get one dog
For sure.
trained, So
Absolutely.
Do you have
And-
any thoughts, though, or suggestions for the growth of the sport? Because, I mean, I feel like even since I met Scott till now, it's a little less popular than it even was. And it was already a minute bite work sport. You know what I mean? IGP and PSA kill it number-wise compared to French ring. And it is difficult. Like, I will be the first one to say a 45-minute ring 3 routine with no equipment on the dog, with obedience, jumps, protection work in rain or in 90 degrees is not for every person. It is a difficult sport for sure. But is there anything that you would suggest to help promote the growth or anything?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just people need to get involved, and young people need to get involved. I think one of the unfortunate things is a lot of young people now, it's either they're lazy or they want money. And I'll meet young guys if I'm like out decoying somewhere, and they're like, "Oh, I'd love to do that." I'm like, "Oh, cool." I'm like, "You could, here's my number. Call me. I'll show you some stuff." I'm like, "How much do I get paid?" I'm like, "You're not getting paid. Like, I'm going to teach you a skill."
I'm not charging you, so yeah.
Yeah. So that's one difficult thing. I mean, like you said, it is a very difficult sport. In my opinion, I think it's one of the most difficult dog sports in the world. It takes a lot more than just a schützen sleeve. You have to have a full suit. You have to have 3 different jumps. The jumps are expensive. You have to have a really good dog. You have to have a good decoy, good trainers and handlers. Like, there's a lot that goes into it for sure. So it definitely takes commitment. I always, again, I use a lot of analogies. I always make the comparison to like the Navy SEALs. There's not a lot of Navy SEALs, compared to like infantrymen. So like, if you want to be the elite and get into ring, you got to have that commitment. Otherwise, you can go into any one of the other sports that has, 10,000 members. There's only 300 members in the U.S. for French ring. And there's probably I don't even know the exact numbers, but there's never more than 20 decoys. I would say we're probably down to like 10 decoys right now for the entire country. And there might be, 20 clubs. And it's also difficult to get into a club. Like, a lot of people, they don't want somebody that's not committed, or they want to get into it with their labradoodle. And it's like, that's not going to happen. Like, you got to get, good dog and be committed. So I think it's hard to say what could make the sport grow, because I could probably talk to you for 12 hours on that one. That's a difficult thing. There's a lot to it.
I think education is a big one, and you're providing that, especially with decoys. I think that's a really huge subset of it, that that you're moving properly, you're treating these dogs properly, you're training them properly, and everything else. And 300. You want to throw that number around? There's 300 freaking people at every agility trial every weekend in every city of this country.
Literally.
Like, when you're comparing that to, other dog sports and everything else, it is a small subset. So, it's something that it should definitely be revered. It is something that it should be respected. It is not an easy thing to train, compete in. It's not easy to just factor in the travel of it. You know what I mean? You're needing to travel a lot more for French ring than your average dog sport. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of components to it, but we really need to be holding the decoys who are teaching like you and who do have great technique and who have been involved for so long in a high regard, because they're few and far between at this point. You know what I mean? And it's really, really important to respect them and everything else. I mean, I look at Adrian in Scott's old club, All Braid Ringers, and he's still out there friggin' every weekend, training probably a few times a week. Like, I mean, that guy, so many people have so much heart, and I'm just so appreciative to people like you and him that are just like still at it. I don't care how old I am or anything else. Like, I'm doing this. This is my passion.
Yeah, I was going to say, to use that Navy SEAL analogy, you get a lot of crazy people that want to get into ring too, just like the Navy SEAls. I mean, this is not a normal. It's not a normal person that wants to get into this sport. I mean, just
and this is coming from a Marine.
Oh my God,
it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Just when you weren't looking, Scott was chewing on crayons.
Oh my God, right now he probably still is. I still have to monitor him, Bob. He literally says, he goes, well, that was the first time I was ever in the moment when the dog was coming to bite me. He goes, I just had to be in the moment. I'm like, when you were 45 and you had a dog running down the field at 30 miles per hour, that was the first time in that whole time that you were ever in the moment? Oh my God. But it does create a level of mindfulness unlike anything you've ever seen before. You are going to learn a lot about yourself through it too.
Absolutely.
I think that out in Southern California, the reason that, Adrian's club, and there's a few out there, but the reason they've been so successful is the infusion of the Hispanics. There's a lot of Mexican guys that just love this stuff. And in Mexico, it's always been much more popular than in the United States. And the young guys, they just love doing it. They love working with dogs. They love the excitement of the decoy work. And they're built for it. And they seem to do pretty well. And he always seems to have 8 or 9 guys out there in a suit. Like, they come what happens is they get to a level of proficiency and then they leave. They go start their own thing somewhere.
Start their own.
Yeah. But there always seems to be another one coming in that is willing to put the suit on. And usually it's not white guys that grew up in this country. They don't tend to really want to do that kind of thing. It's like you said, they're for whatever reason. Just different mindset.
One thing I want to touch on, and you can speak to this personally with Erica being competitive. And I mean, when you were out here, I know that you were Daniela's decoy with Barron, and Daniela was very successful in ring as a female and everything else. But it almost seems like it's a female-dominated competitor at this point in the sport.
Really is.
Like, is it not crazy? That has been a shift for sure. Like, since I was first introduced to it till now. So I don't know if you can talk to that point or why you think that may be or anything else. I mean, power to the women. Like, I'm all about it, but it's crazy to me. I look at a trial and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's more women there than there were men competing. It's just different.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, it's great. I mean, it's nice to see a lot of women out there doing it. And it is pretty much dominated by women now. Erica's a multi-time national champion. She's getting pretty close to winning this year, fingers crossed. And, see what happens. But there's a lot of women competing. Obviously, there's not a lot of women decoying. And this just goes to the physicality of being a decoy. Like, I know, you remember Stephanie was trying to be a decoy, and I think she snapped her leg down in Florida. And it's really difficult. I mean, you have a 75-pound dog running downfield at 40 miles an hour, slamming into a 110-pound girl. Something's going to give.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So I mean, it's difficult for them to be a decoy. I mean, they're more than welcome to do it, but definitely handling. There is a lot of women involved in it now, which is nice because when you get a lot of men involved in it, sometimes a lot of ego starts to kind of get involved too, and people start having pissing contests instead of just listening to their trainer and taking advice and doing the best they can. Even now, I have a really small club. It's basically me and Erica, another decoy that I'm training, and his wife, and she's got a really nice dog, and hopefully coming up pretty soon too. So I like to keep it small and just have high level dogs, but just a small amount.
You know, what's funny, when I was training the dog I have now, Jess handled the dog primarily because I was always in the suit.
Sure.
And then when I went to compete, it was harder for me to I had some issues because I wasn't handling him as much. I was always on the suit side. And I remember one of the biggest issues we had was doing the blinds, where he was always looking for me in the blind. So then when I'm handling him and we're sending him, he's like looking back at me like, are you sure you want me to go? And just little things like that. But, I think Jess would have been better off handling my dog and competing with him than me. Plus, she had a better memory than me. I'd forget.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I'd forget the rules half the time.
Maybe there's more women because there's so many more rules now than there even used to be 10 years ago, and they remember them better. I don't know what the shift was, but there is a shift. And I love it. There's a lot of amazing women that are handling in this country, but definitely it is a female-dominated competition now, which is totally different.
Listen, I know we got to wrap this up here pretty quick, but could we just touch on the police dogs real quick?
Absolutely.
Because you and I, we went to, remember we did that.
Vermont.
We went to Vermont at the Vermont Police Academy up there, and you took some bites from their dogs. It was a detection weekend, but we still did some bite work up there. I just saw a video the other day, and this is not uncommon. That the guy sends his dog. He's got the camera on his chest, so he's running behind the dog, and the dog wouldn't engage. Like the dog, and then he's yelling at the dog to bite the guy. The dog got so stressed out, he turned and bit the cop. Then he was all upset that he got bit, and it's the same kind of thing. It's that training and the right training. And a lot of the police departments, the cops are not trainers. I mean, it's not their passion. They've been assigned a dog. They want to do it, but they don't necessarily have that foundation like we're talking about, And and they also get put into I shouldn't speak out of turn, but they get put out into the field fairly quickly. They go through a course for a couple of weeks, and then they're out working with this dog, and the dogs are still kind of green. They still got a lot of work to do. So it's the same kind of thing. The dogs
are, as you know, a lot of those dogs are pretty much fully trained when they get the dog. So the dog is at a higher level of training than the handler.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're trying to catch the handler up to the dog. And some of them are mismatched. You have a new handler with a very experienced dog or a hard dog. And and then a lot of the training that I've always saw with police departments was scenario based. They never do what I would consider real training, like bite development, grip development.
Right.
Scenario based is all they really do. Like, we're going to send him in the building. And I'm like, yeah, but your dog bites like shit. Let's put him on a bungee and a harness and build his grip.
Right.
So that when he does catch the guy, he's actually biting him instead of just bouncing around and mouthing him.
Right.
So that they kind of lack in that area. And a lot of it just goes with, you're a civilian. What the hell do you know about training a police dog? I know how to train a dog. Yeah. But then when it comes to anything else, again, I use martial arts. If I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, they'll come to me to learn how to get somebody in handcuffs, but I'm not a cop. Or if I'm an expert shooter, they'll come to me for shooting lessons, but I'm not a cop. But then when it comes to dog training, you're not a cop, so you don't know what you're talking about. So it's kind of a weird glitch in police canines now.
Right.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to education, like you're saying, just making sure that they're more educated about the training, and people who are interested in that from the police perspective. Bob has a ton to teach and, impart to that too, because it's all the same thing. It's the same mental game. It's getting in the dog's head. It's building them up, making them feel stronger than they are, especially when we're talking police stuff versus sport. It's not that super snappy out and everything else, but education is key in all of these things. And police dogs specifically have been getting a lot of heat lately, and they're an asset. They are a wonderful asset to our police department. And yes, the training is important. And yes, getting the police officers the proper education is very important. But that is a subset of our population that we should be grateful for in this country and not be talking bad about.
No, for sure. Yeah, and that's the thing is, I'm not trying to talk bad about it.
Oh, you're not. Other people are. No, you're not at all. No, I just, a lot of people are like, oh, we don't need police dogs anymore. And it's like, well, okay, police dogs, cops, there's a pretty important role for them in society still. So let's just not speak out of turn.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that we didn't touch on?
Go ahead.
Those are people that have never had a lost child and the dog finds them. It's like something as simple as that.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of people that can attest to how important it is to have them out in the field. Anything else, Bob, that we haven't touched on in sport dog training, pet dog training, life, anything else that you want to share? Do you want to talk a little bit about your pet dog business? We do have listeners all over the country. That we might have some people out in the Arizona area.
I was going to say, what'd you do? Pay a bunch of people to give you good reviews? I see you.
Yeah, hey, one of the rare things that we do that most people don't anymore is just offer good service, So it's we kind of cater to our clientele and do what exactly we're paid to do, is train your dog. I find a lot of trainers nowadays, it kind of goes with society. they're trying to make they're trying to make the owner happy instead of train the dog. So they kind of become really passive and don't actually train the dog. It's difficult to train a dog. The dog's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be moments when the dog is stressing out because they're learning something new. And what I like to say to people is, what the hell kind of a life do you have that you never deal with stress? Why is your dog any different? They're going to deal with stress. That's how they learn. And because again, coming from Boston and now working in Arizona, I think because I'm so blunt and straightforward, it's kind of made us more successful out here, because most people out here are just sugarcoating everything and really trying to appease to the owner instead of just train the damn dog, you know?
And a lot of people that are in the profession don't actually know how to train either. So kudos to that also, you know what you're doing and you're surrounding yourself with people that know what they're doing. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, we'll link your pet dog training URL as well, in addition to the decoy playbook, but they can just do like a web contact form and you'll follow up with them and they can hook up that way. But I mean, we're talking a lot about fancy stuff and dogs and bite suits and everything else, but Bob primarily does pet dog training, and he is helping just your average rover become the best family member that he or she can be, just like Scott and I are doing out here in New England. So thank you for that work, because that is not easy these days either.
No,
for sure.
Pet dog training is tricky.
It makes ring sport look almost easy.
Yeah, reverse role.
At least you have a stable dog when you start.
God. All right, don't go off a rabbit hole now. Come on, we love our clients. We're Doodle Nation, whatever. Whoever wants to pay for boot camp is fine. Bob, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for everything you're doing in this industry. Thank you, honestly, I'm realizing it, for being one of the most long-standing decoys in this country. I mean, really, kudos to freaking you. I think he'll still be in the suit until he's your age. We got another 10 plus years at least.
You got a few years ahead of you.
Yeah, Erica needs a few more wins and a few more championships
He'll be
before
down
you're
there,
going anywhere.
down there in a wheelchair. We'll be just sending the dog for bites.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. If you are out in the Arizona area, you click on All American Canine's link and you contact Bob and his wife Erica and their great team. They can help you and they can help your dog. We will see you guys next Wednesday. And in the meantime, keep it quirky. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.